Hello there Scapers, my name is Zenevilius of to Pros, and today we're going to explore the idea that siphoning an item at level 9 is better XP an hour than siphoning it at level 12. Why is that? That's what I want to get into. Why is that, and is it true, and is it worth it, and have a look at some practical applications of it. So first, as usual, I say as usual because I'd made a video similar to this one where I compared all the different methods you can use to train Invention and statistically work out the best method and do like a full statistical analysis. That was back in March if you want to check that out, and this is like a follow-up video I guess, but this one's only going to go into siphoning, and as I did in that video I'm going to have a look at the theory behind it, well the stats behind it, and then do some testing and figure out whether it's actually true. So the theory behind it, first of all, the two things that actually make siphoning at level 9 better than siphoning at level 12 are the fact that to get to level 9 you need your weapon or your armor or whatever to get 28.761k item XP, and to get it to level 12 you need 82k weapon XP. So at level 9 you need 65% less item XP, but you get 198k invention XP compared to 540k at level 12, which is only 63% less. So you can already see the benefits, right? So proportionally, because of that, you actually get 4.5% extra invention XP an hour compared to level 12 by siphoning something at level 9. It doesn't matter what your item XP rate is, it doesn't matter what the item is, as long as you siphon it at level 9, regardless of anything else, you will always get 4.5% more XP an hour than if you're siphoning it at level 12. Now the downside is obviously the cost, right? Now if we have a simple model, let's actually switch to tier 90 because this video is going to be about the Noxus side mainly, disassembling a Noxus side, and we're going to be looking at airuts because airuts give one of the highest item XP rates an hour. That is still the case. I believe it's one of the fastest ways to train Invention in the game, if not the fastest. And yeah, let's consider a side when I do the testing, but for now it doesn't matter what the item is, it doesn't matter how fast you're getting your item leveled up. All that matters is that if you siphon it at level 9 you're going to be getting 4.5% extra XP an hour. However, having said that, you will be paying a lot more money. Again, regardless of the tier of the weapon, the tier of the armor, whatever tier of the item you're leveling up, you will always pay 2.85 times as much money an hour to level up that item if you continually siphon it at level 9 than if you continue siphoned it at level 12. Why is this? It's very simple. It's because you're using more siphons an hour, and siphons cost money, right? If you're siphoning something, you don't dismantle it, so the only charge you're paying it, I guess, is through siphons. And if you siphon it at level 9, well, you're going to be using 2.8 times as many siphons an hour, so you're going to be paying 2.8 times more. It's actually a little bit more complicated than that because as you level up something you get a few benefits from leveling it up, but I'll get onto that after I do the testing at airuts. But one final thing before we get onto airuts, I want to compare level 9, level 12 and also level 10, but level 10 disassembly. Now I covered a bit of this in my previous video which I mentioned earlier, but just quickly to summarize, if you disassemble a tier 70 item at level 10 you will get 459k invention XP an hour. And let's have a look at the statistics here. If you compare a level 12 siphon of a tier 90 weapon versus a level 10 disassembly of a tier 70 weapon, these are the statistics. The main thing to note here is that we're assuming you're going to be getting the same item XP an hour for both these items, which is absolutely not true. You'll be getting different item XPs an hour because you'll be doing far more DPS using a tier 90 weapon than you would be using a tier 70 weapon. But if that was not the case for some weird reason, these are the statistics. You'll be getting 34% less XP an hour, invention XP an hour, with a level 12 siphon of a tier 90 weapon than a level 10 disassembly of a tier 70 weapon. You will also be paying less money because, of course, if you disassemble a level 10 item, here I've assumed it's a crystal halberd which costs 450k, you're paying for the cost of the entire item every time you disassemble it, but when you're siphoning something you're only paying for the cost of the siphon. Also you're paying for the cost of the augmenter when you disassemble that item, right? You're not even factoring in the time you take to disassemble items to make augmenters here, we're just talking about purely disassembling that item. So So you pay less money, that's a big benefit. You pay 85% less money if you siphon a tier 90 than if you disassemble a tier 70, specifically a crystal halberd. But having said all that, what do you need to do to make sure you get the same invention XP an hour using both these methods? What you need to do is make sure your tier 90 weapon is getting you 51% more DPS than your tier 70 weapon. That might sound like a lot, actually. It is quite a lot more DPS. 51% compared to tier 70. Yeah, it's probably not true if you're fighting a monster that you can hit with 100% accuracy. However, it's a very different case with airuts because they have such a high defense. You're going to hit far more often with a tier 90 than with a tier 70. Plus, you'll hit higher as well, right? So that's what we're going to test out. See if it's actually worth using a tier 90. It probably is, but just purely because you will definitely be, well, I'm hoping you'll definitely be getting at least 51% more DPS out of it. But having said all that, we'll have to see because, well, in RS things are never as they seem, are they? There's always something going on behind the scenes. Hey guys, guess what? I'm in the middle of Castle Wars Spotlight. It's been one of the reasons why I haven't made too many videos. I need to go for trim here. Haven't got any time to waste. I'm just doing this in between games, taking a 1 game break. Anyway guys, so I did testing. I did plenty of testing. You must have seen a few clips of my deaths a little earlier, and that happened when I was testing the side. So with the side I was testing how long it took to level it from 1 to 12, and it actually took me 77 minutes. I died 3 times in that, and I actually started out at 700 item XP because I died twice before it even properly started killing airuts, and then I died once at the end as well. And I was pretty sloppy, so the item XP an hour was only 63k, which is pretty low. Next time I do it, it should be like 70k plus, but that was a really sloppy 77 minutes. So that was that, and then with the crystal halberd it took me only 47 minutes, guys. That was probably at the peak of the item XP an hour you could get, because I was on a roll when I was doing the crystal halberd. I didn't die first of all, and I was like in the proper spot dealing out massive DPS. I know the figure is a little skewed because of my fails, but the side is only 24% more DPS according to this than the crystal halberd. It needs to be 50%, 51% more DPS in order for it to be a more viable option in terms of invention XP an hour. It isn't. The crystal halberd is still better at airuts. However, I know I was a little lucky, but you do run the risk of running out of food and not being able to heal back up enough just because you don't deal massive amounts of DPS. But we'll talk about that later. So before we move on to the statistical analysis, I just had 3 key points to make, which might make more sense, I suppose, when you look at the analysis, and it might make sense if you've done airuts before. So the first point is that well, you have a lot of charge drain reduction options available to you as you level up invention. In fact, I've unlocked the maximum highest tier. I've unlocked the tier 9 version at level 105 invention, which means that my base rate for my knock side is not 5.62 charges per second anymore. It is 4.5 for this item. So that's a massive boost before we even get on to anything to do with you know, in combat benefits. And then for the crystal halberd, similar story. It's instead of 1.87 it's 1.5. That's awesome. The second thing is that the item XP per hour difference between between disassembly, siphoning, and siphoning at level 9 and 12, everything, it's different because you actually take time out of combat, don't you, to either disassemble or siphon. Now if you do that more often, you'll take more time out of it, and I'm not actually factoring that into my calculations, but that will just increase the difference between the XP per hour than what is already the case. And finally, I actually goofed up. My halberd perks are pretty bad, as you can see, compared to my side perks, which may have made the result a bit more flawed towards the side. However, the fact that I completely failed by dying 3 times while I was leveling the side may have offset that, and maybe it's all balanced, but you never know. Time to look at the actual difference between level 9 and level 12 after our testing, guys. And remember that I only tested out the side from level 1 to 12. I didn't do it separately for level 1 to 9. This is because obviously it's the same weapon and everything is the same. There is only one small difference, like I talked about earlier. You spend 26 seconds out of combat per siphon in order to go out of combat and siphon it and then come back in combat, because you can't do it in combat right now. They might change it in the future, and that creates a very, very slight rift between the two. If you factor that in, 26 seconds lost per siphon, then level 9 gives you slightly less item XP an hour than level 12, only 0.01% less, but that does affect the invention XP rates and the siphons per hour. So if you remember, the theoretical one was plus 4.49% and plus 184.97%, slightly less now, obviously not much less, but yeah, level 9 is still better than level 12 if you value your 4.47% more invention XP an hour. Now the other side to this is a charge per hour. Remember what I said earlier about the fact that if your weapon is at level 5, it will gain the benefit of using up 10% less charge per second than it would under level 5 or between levels 1 and 5. And if you factor that into our calculations, you'll see that if you siphon at level 9, you're going to use up a little bit more charge per hour than if you siphon at level 12, 2.05% to be exact. And this actually affects the cost per hour. Now, the cost per hour that I mentioned earlier in the video, that didn't factor in the charge at all, guys. It only factored in the siphons per hour. If you factor in the charge, the very minimum that level 9 is going to cost you more than level 12 is 38.8%. Now this is a minimum because I'm not considering the possibility or the probability that you guys will have unlocked the charge drain reduction abilities, and if you unlock that, this rift will be even higher, or this difference will be even higher. For example, for me, I've unlocked charge drain reduction 9, and if I factor that in, actually level 9 will cost me 45.8% more than level 12. So the more perks you unlock, the more you discover at your invention bench, the bigger the difference in cost between level 9 and 12. The minimum, of course, is 38.8% if you haven't unlocked any reduction stuff. If you've unlocked all of them, it'll be 45.8%. You can make up your mind whether or not it's worth the 45.8% extra you're going to be paying and the 4.47% extra invention XP an hour you're going to be getting. Only two things remain to be done, guys. The first is the actual comparison of level 10 versus level 12. Now, we figured out that the side was 23.6% more DPS than the Crystal Halberd, and this was because I was pretty bad with the side and I was pretty good with the Crystal Halberd. So that number would ideally be higher, somewhere around the 30 to 35% mark. However, as it stands, this is the case. Now, if you factor in the time it takes for you to, siphon, and the fact that you need to go out to combat for it, like we did earlier, that number increases a little bit from 23.6 to 24.74%, which is still not enough for the invention XP rates to match. So as it turns out, even at airuts, a place where accuracy is so important, disassembling a tier 70 weapon at level 10 is still better, it's still faster than siphoning at level 12 using a tier 90 weapon. But level 10 will cost you twice as much as level 12, guys. That is the biggest disadvantage. This is mostly due to the fact that you're disassembling an entire weapon, and so you have to factor in the cost of the Crystal Halberd each time as well. And also the fact that you will be performing a lot more disassemblies an hour than the number of siphons an hour you would be. For example, 1.265 disassemblies an hour compared to only 0.77 siphons an hour. This is obviously because you only need 40.1k to disassemble a tier 70 weapon at level 10. You need double that to disassemble a tier 90 weapon at level 12, or any weapon at level 12 really. Yeah, those are the statistics for that. I don't know if it's worth it. 17% is quite a lot. I might be willing to pay double just to get that 17% extra boost in invention XP rates. So overall, is the Crystal Halberd faster to train invention overall at airuts than the Noxus side? No. No, because I have not considered the armor, have I, in this video. That's for another video, guys. If there's enough interest, I will do a full-on analysis of all the different combinations of weapons and armor that you can use to give you different invention XP rates, different costs and all that. Similar to the video I did in March, like I mentioned, about disassembly and siphoning at Armadillo Godwell's dungeon, but this time it will be at airuts, of course. So I hope you look forward to that. And finally, if any of you have been having a nagging thought at the back of your mind as to why are you only comparing level 9 to level 12? Why not any of the others? Could they be better? Well, they're not actually, because level 9 is the best theoretically. This is why. So if you do the calculation, do all the math, even though level 11 and 10 are still slightly better, level 9 is the best in terms of invention XP rates. If you assume that you get the same item XP rate for all the levels, which will not be the case, because at level 4, for example, you will have to siphon about 15-16 times as much as level 12, as often as level 12. That's going to drain your bank pretty quick. Anyway, level 9 is the fastest. It may be more expensive, may not be even worth it, but it is the fastest invention XP per hour if you're siphoning. Thank you guys for watching this video, and in the description you'll see the link to the Google Sheet that I used to make this video. It's got all the calculations and formulas in it if you want to check out where I got certain things from. And as I said before, I will hopefully be doing an airut related invention video with a full analysis soon-ish, maybe also an airut guide in there just for good measure.
I'll take the